Saw 4 is directed by Darren Lynn Bousman, featuring Tobin, Betsy, Costas, Mandylor, and Scott Patterson, and this is the final entry in the Saw film that is directed by Darren Lynn Bousman until the upcoming Spiral from the Book of Saw gets released this May. While FBI agents Strom and Perez are still engulfed in the grisly Jigsaw case, SWAT Commander Rigg is roped in as the last pawn for yet another lethal game of the manic Jigsaw. Now guys, before I give you my review of Saw 4, I want to see what you guys have to say about this movie down in the comment section below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or are you somewhere around the middle? Please comment down below. Let me know. As I said, this is the last film in the Saw franchise directed by Darren Lynn Bousman. He is the director of the upcoming Spiral from the Book of Saw, written by Pete Goldfinger and Josh Stolberg, and features Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. And I can say this trilogy of Saw movies, Saw 2 through 4 of Darren Lynn Bousman's, they were the last interesting ones. Kind of. Saw 6 is pretty good. From my recollection, at least. It was at this point in this movie that the franchise really started to go downhill. Saw 3, in my opinion, is not a good movie, but is at least an enjoyable one where you can turn your brain off no matter how prolonged the entire story actually is. This movie, on the other hand, is one that is riddled with just messy filmmaking. I like Darren Lynn Bousman as a director, especially within the Saw movies, and he has, you know, good ideas for the story and everything. But it's without a doubt that the thing that is holding these movies together at this point is Tobin Bell. By the 4th movie in the series, Tobin Bell is clearly the one pulling the strings and keeping everything together in regards to Jigsaw as a character, what he would do, what he wouldn't do, and everything in regards to the traps, his morals, and his actions. And Tobin Bell as Jigsaw, aka John Kramer, once again is just absolutely incredible. I love his performance in this movie. I love his performance in all of these movies. He's easily the best part out of all of these movies combined, out of all 8 of them currently. He is the thing that is keeping all of it together. I think that Scott Patterson as Peter Strom is a really cool addition to the mix. Although the performance seems very over the top, I think the character is interesting enough and is given quite a bit to do. I think that Mark Hoffman, who, by the way, I think is actually named after one of the producers or something of the first 2 Saw movies before he sadly passed away. His last name was Hoffman. I don't know the logistics of it, but he is named after one of the crew members and filmmakers behind the Saw movies. His character at this point, this is the beginning of his story and, you know, his arc in regards to the Saw movies, with him being the accomplice to Jigsaw. That big twist at the end that this takes place during the events of Saw 3, not after Jigsaw's death, but during the events of the 3rd movie while Jeff is doing his game and tests, I think is really interesting. And also the reveal that, Hoffman has actually been working for Jigsaw this entire time. Rewatching this movie today, I actually realized multiple things. There are so many hints throughout the movie in regards to stuff that, Hoffman says, stuff that he does and everything. There are little hints provided here and there as to him being the Jigsaw accomplice. And I love that. The movie on rewatch actually provides little breadcrumbs that you notice on rewatches in regards to who the accomplice actually is that Strom and Perez are looking for the entire movie. I also think that this movie has some of the coolest traps in the entire series. You've got the trap in regards to the scalping chair, which is a very intense sequence, even though it is riddled with very, very poor performances from the prostitute in the chair and everything being scalped, with her constantly screaming and being over the top. And, you know, you've got the bed trap and everything where the guy has to stab his own eyes out with the machine, otherwise he gets his limbs ripped off. No sympathy for that fuckhead, by the way. Rapist, no. I wanted him to die. Every time I watch this movie, I'm just like, fail. And it makes me very happy every single time he dies. The block of ice trap that, Detective Eric Matthews is in. Really cool seeing not only Donnie Wahlberg back, but that trap is awesome with one of the most satisfying traps and deaths in the entire series. It's not satisfying in the sense of the character dying, because you care about the character and what he's lost, but in the sense of, it's just cool. Seeing the ice cubes come down, swing, and boof. Really, really cool stuff. You've got the, the spine sever trap and everything from, you know, Arc Blank, the lawyer character who's in the room with Hoffman, Matthews, and, you know, so on. And he's actually got this machine on his back, which, after the timer and everything, if he fails, it severs his spine. My point is, this movie has some of the coolest traps in the entire series. Unfortunately, this is where I get into my issues. When it comes to those trap sequences, the movie is riddled with poor editing, not just the fast, choppy editing that we know from these movies so far in regards to, you know, the traps as a whole, but when it comes to the editing within the traps themselves, it's constantly distracting, because whenever it's in the middle of, like, the climax of the trap, it then just cuts away to, like, a police precinct where some prints are being matched and everything, and then it just cuts right back in regards to like invisible cuts. Very cool filmmaking, but very distracting, especially in regards to pacing and being engrossed and really thrilled by these trap sequences and really trying to get into the moment. It is so distracting to an obnoxious degree that it's kind of hard to get into the flow of things. The pacing of this movie is all over the place for that reason. You're constantly focusing on so many different subplots and so many things going on, you kind of find it hard to follow the narrative. Especially when this is a 95-minute movie, which is cramming in so many things at once. I think this is one of the Saw movies that needed to be about 2 hours in length, because it needed to broaden out to explore Jigsaw's past, why he did what he did, why he started doing what he's doing, in regards to Gideon, his long-lost son and everything, who died from a miscarriage due to Cecil slamming the door into his wife Jill Tuck's stomach, in regards to her having a miscarriage. What happened to Jill Tuck, the divorce period and everything. Why does she not like what John's doing, even though she in the later movies is all for it and everything and is on with the games? It's very confusing in regards to the motivation of the character, and it doesn't settle enough on it. Therefore, in the later movies, it kind of is a detriment to the quality of those following movies in regards to characters and narrative. I really wish it paced itself out better and took more time to delve into these moments. The stuff where it's exploring Jigsaw, aka John Kramer's past, is easily the most interesting stuff in this movie, and I want an entire movie of just a prequel before the traps, without any traps involved, before he became Jigsaw. I want it to be about him when Gideon was, you know, being formed in the womb and everything, and he was married with Jill Tuck and everything. Just Betsy Russell needs to be better at acting, though. Her performance is absolutely fucking atrocious and just gets worse throughout the series. But at the same time, it's distracting, it's constantly jumpy, you don't get enough time to settle, and I wish we just had a separate prequel movie, and then the final trap of the movie, well, the final scene of the movie is John Kramer's first trap, setting up everything throughout Saw 1, 2, 3, and so on, to then have the final moment of the movie be Cecil's trap with the knife cage. A very thrilling, intense moment, a very nail-gripping, well, a nail-biting, chair-gripping sequence, white-knuckled, that is overshadowed and everything because of terrible editing. It constantly jumping back and forth between timelines and everything, and it becomes very hard, very convoluted, and, you know, it becomes very hard to follow. There are so many good elements within this movie, but there are so many distracting elements too, from the good elements and good ideas. It makes this easily one of the most frustrating Saw movies, because I do see a good movie in here somewhere. But sadly, it's overshadowed by poor editing, some really distracting storytelling, and jumpy narrative, some dialogue that really doesn't land and feels like I was wiping my ass and my asshole wrote it after I took a dump. That's how the dialogue flows in this movie for a large majority of it. There are some great moments in regards to interrogation scenes between Patterson? Scott Patterson and Betsy Russell as Jill Tuck and Peter Strom. Their dynamic, and whenever they're in a room together in an interrogation, it's really thrilling stuff and very intense. I love how fast-paced it is and how it moves by. But it's jumping back and forward constantly, so therefore you can't settle in the intense moment for it to have that full effect. And therefore it is very distracting, very disappointing, and really hard to sort of get invested. I also found it very confusing, the decision for a lot of the gore and violence in this movie, rather than being practical like the last 3 movies were and the following movies in the series, for this to then be Cgi Blood. In the Mausoleum trap, which is the one where it's like hear no evil, see no evil, where one guy has his eyes sewn shut, the other one his mouth, one of them being arc blank, and the other guy that you actually see was a patient at Jill Tuck's clinic a few years ago and everything. When they're in that trap, whenever they're being hit by the axes or like the crowbars and everything and having things severed, what is it? It's Cgi Blood, and it's very noticeable, very distracting, and not well done at all. And it kind of pulls you out of the moment. It doesn't feel real for that reason. It feels very played on and very cheap. Granted, all these movies are very cheap. This movie earned $139 million worldwide and was only made for $10 million. Like, this had a huge fucking profit. Overall, Saw 4 is a very disappointing movie. It's very frustrating because I see so many good elements in regards to the history and the story of Jigsaw, and so many elements with Detective Rigg in regards to, you know, let them save themselves or see what I see. Some really good riddles, some really good moments, some really cool traps, but it's overshadowed by really bad editing, poor storytelling, crappy dialogue, some really, really bad acting at times, and a story and all that is very contrived in regards to not just the continuity of the Saw series, but just very incoherent in regards to its flow. Its pacing is all over the place and very hard to get invested in. It's an enjoyable movie, don't get me wrong. This is an easy watch. but at the same time, a disappointing one at that. I have to be honest, I do like it more than Saw 3, but it's a very disappointing one with a lot more potential than what was actually provided in the end product. I'm going to give Saw 4 a C-. So guys, what do you think of Saw 4? I want to see what you guys have to say down in the comment section below. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Or are you somewhere right in the middle? Just comment down below. Let me know. Look out for my review of Saw 5 coming next week, and the following week Saw 6, Saw 7, and Jigsaw leading up to Spiral from the Book of Saw. Thank you all so much for joining, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.